10:30 p.m. and I'm doing what I can to be calm and deal with whatever should occur with this storm as necessary. Hurricane Laura, they call it. I am looking right now at a few things. If you've seen my other site, or maybe you haven't, then you will know that I am a critic of the USMCA. I do not believe it is a wise idea, and I believe the way that it was put forward and what's happened with it is not a good fit. It's not a good match. And I was not alone at the time it came to be, but I believe I might have had different motivation. The point of the matter is that currently on the website for the White House is an executive order that was issued by Donald Trump on this week, on August 24th, 2020. If anybody has been aware of the rollout of these opportunity zones, then you might understand that they are administered, at least affiliated with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I have twice attempted to get information about how to work with an opportunity zone, and both times there was misrepresentation. But it did reveal that what is and does occur with these opportunity zones is a multi level kind of systematology. This executive order says executive order on targeting opportunity zones and other distressed communities for federal site locations. It references an executive order 12072. Not so ironically, I had a letter that I'd written and put on another site that is timed for 207. And this came up today earlier within the last few hours. I wanted to say 207 and not 207, which would be how you would say it if it were a time. But if it is sandwiched in between a 12 as a reference to an executive order 12072, in this executive order that the president has put forth, he amends the section heading Space Acquisition and Management, SAM, or SAAM, and depending upon whether you're going through the Office of Management and Budget, which is mentioned here explicitly, or whether you're going through the State Department, which is not mentioned explicitly but is implicit, especially if one knows a little bit more about the opportunity zones, at least as an option, then the concerns and the implications of renaming the section Space Acquisition and Management, which is not a term that I've heard used before, become ones for consideration. But down in the executive order, it says a few things, two things that are very striking. First, it says, under Section 2, Amendments to Executive Order 13006, dated for May 21st of 1996. It says that Section 1 is further amended by deleting, quote, our central cities, which have historically served as the centers for growth and commerce in our metropolitan areas, end quote, where such language appears in the first sentence, and by replacing the deleted language with, quote, distressed communities, end quote. So they're replacing the characterization of central cities, which have historically served the centers for growth and commerce, with distressed communities. So a little further down, there is another discussion, some changing in the wordage that's very specific and strategic in terms of Section 2 is amended in the first sentence by inserting, quote, as amended, end quote, after the words, quote, executive order number 12072, end quote, and by deleting the word first where such word appears. Section 2 is further amended by combining and amending the second and third sentences to read as follows. If no such property is suitable, then such consideration shall include other developed or undeveloped sites within historic districts or historic properties outside of historic districts. If this is something that's being implemented prior to a natural disaster response, that may include an alteration of the bandwidth, which could also potentially include some sort of manipulation of radio frequency as emergency frequencies are being broadcast to deal with the situation, and is potentially combined with other kinds of technology that may be involved with addressing a weather event like the hurricanes, then you actually have a system whereby various factors can be engaged in order to impact people biophysiologically in their own housing and home areas. And the characterization has gone from centers of growth and development or growth and commerce to being characterized as distressed communities. So there's going to be a combination of things that were previously not meant to be accessible. And there's also going to be a recharacterization of something that's meant to grow and thrive into something that's meant to be designated as distressed while this is all put into SAM. Are we being prepared for foreign export? Which would be the implications of SAAM. Or are we being extracted and harvested so that we can be recirculated through federal databases regarding contract awards without specification, which means we could also be being exported abroad? This becomes even more concerning to me because I'm in Texas, and there's been some characterization in Texas of what to expect from this Hurricane Laura that I find to be unacceptable. There's no reason for the National Weather Service to have used the kind of language it did. And in the course of that, there's a little historical situation. One thing that's been happening is numerous references have been working a case that thus far has not appeared as other cases have with the announcements of people that have been shot, but it's one that has been longstanding in the state of Texas. There was a case that was used to prosecute a significant RICO case for labor racketeering. And the case involved car bombs that targeted political opposition, and the name of the case was U.S. versus Flynn, Flynn. I had found this case in the spring of 2017 and was evaluating it in connection with my investigation and my attempt to prosecute an actual criminal conspiracy starting in the state of Texas that I also tried to get contact with the Department of Justice from in the beginning of 2018. But by the time I started trying to send my information to the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., there was a situation going on in Texas where there were these mysterious car bombings and they primarily targeted Federal Express trucks. There were these mail bombs that ended up going off after they had gone through these Federal Express trucks, including in the Federal Express trucks themselves. There were 5 of them. And this was going on around the time I was attempting to send my package to the Department of Justice to be considered for prosecution in connection with a criminal enterprise. Now, I've never referenced that specific case in any of my legal filings yet, but I've kept track of how it's connected to other things, and the things that were discussed in that case specifically actually provide a kind of structure through which one can see specific events come up. And lo and behold, in the fall, the autumn of 2018, in a very specific time frame connected to what happened with those 5 bombings in the state of Texas, there was alleged to be sent to several people's houses, including Hillary and Bill Clinton's house, and including, I believe, a major financier's house who was a campaign supporter of Hillary Clinton, as well as at least 2 other people, a mail bomb. That package bomb had been sent to their house via, not Federal Express, by the way, but the USPS. And so these things have been coming up, and I mentioned this because my understanding is that former command officer Michael Flynn was involved in a capital venture called Conversion Capital. And this year, on May 16th, 2020, on another site where I criticized the USMCA, I also acknowledged that there was a 1 year benchmark on releases of information from Senator Dianne Feinstein about allegations concerning the Trump campaign that themselves correlated with a announcement regarding a proxy statement from a uranium company. Insofar as this executive order discusses a conversion, including an inversion conversion, of thriving and growing metropolitan centers into distressed communities, I don't think that the correlation and the timing is immaterial. And not only that, one of the things it mentions here is that this particular conversion capital organization, which is what it is involved in another venture called Conversion Labs, which will bring together entrepreneurs and engineers to develop and scale software solutions for the most pressing challenges reshaping society during and after the pandemic. During and after the pandemic. And then later it says it is backed by leaders including CAA founder Michael Ovitz, BlackRock Chief Investment Officer Rick Ryder, and former chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors Glenn Hubbard. The thing is that, as some people may know, BlackRock has been involved with accumulating or acquiring junk bonds as part of working with the Department of Treasury in order to deal with the major toxic assets or the toxic companies that are involved with or being hit by this pandemic, but also are at places in their own corporate feasance that are already due for some sort of recharacterization, including refinancing on debt or obligation commitments on timelines to address their debt. A lot of these are also connected to the gas and oil sector. And insofar as this is, Texas and that this is hitting the Gulf Coast, as I said earlier, it's important to look at what's going on, not only with the strategic reserves, but also with the gas and oil sector in this area, to hope that there is not an attempt to engage in some very significant toxic dumping during the hurricane that's meant to draw on or draw down on some sort of emergency response, while a variety of recharacterizations create distressed assets that can then be bonded to conversion capital. Now, I don't know. I've rarely been wrong at this level with this kind of precision. It's 10:43 p.m. August 26, 2020. I am not at all distressed, by the way, and I'm not converting, especially on a 72.